Hello, everyone. Welcome to Proficy 2026, our annual leadership strategy and product launch webinar series. My name is Alexis Murphy, and I will be your host today. On today's webinar, we'll be talking about the many exciting new features for Proficy Historian 2026 for cloud and Windows, including new collector capabilities, MQTT improvements for more metadata fields, REST API improvements, AI capabilities, Office 365 compatibility, and Kafka producer and consumer improvements as well. Now, before we get into the bulk of today's presentation, I want to be sure to mention that today's event may include forward-looking statements. The information presented is intended to be an outline of general product direction, and it should not be relied on in making a purchasing decision. Now for some housekeeping. You should all see an interface with some buttons at the bottom of your screen. They look like the ones on the right side of the slide here. Please send any questions you have through the orange chat bubble button. Through the purple envelope button, you can contact our team. The blue paperclip button is our most important, as it's where you'll find relevant content and resources related to today's webinar. Through that orange person icon, you can connect with today's presenter and product manager for Proficy Historian, Brian Johnson. If you need technical assistance, please reach out through the orange question mark button, though most of your issues can be resolved just by refreshing your browser. And then lastly, we ask that you please share your feedback through the pink checklist button. It's where you can send us your different challenges and initiatives, and it's really how we build our solutions collaboratively with your insight in mind. Now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Brian Johnson. Brian is the product manager for Proficy Historian. He is a certified agile product owner and has worked in product development and product management for a decade. He has a passion for driving digital transformation and new technology adoption with a focus on cloud technologies. Technology as a catalyst for growth and change is an area he finds particularly interesting. Brian also has an undergraduate degree from Harvard University and certificates in digital transformation from Cornell. With that, I will pass it over to Brian to take us through today's presentation. Take it away, Brian.
Thanks, Alexis. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this current year, 2026 Proficy Historian webinar. I think this is probably the most exciting update that we've had since I've been product manager for the last 4 years. So hopefully folks will find some really great content today, and we'll have some really great questions for us at the end. So we'll start to dig right in. All right. So as you can see, the Proficy portfolio still remains as it always was, right? We cover all of the different levels of manufacturing software. Historian is still right at the middle. You can see here in the middle of the chart, right? We still work with MES. We still work with Proficy Scheduler. We have some new flavors of Historian that we'll talk about today during this session, which are really exciting. But all of the capability that you've grown to know and love from Proficy Historian is still available. And in fact, it's getting better year over year. The new capabilities we'll talk about today, I think, are pretty exciting. And you can see all of the capabilities that we offer, contextualizing data, collecting and storing data. These are really the wheelhouse of Proficy Historian and how we're going to excel in years to come. So really quite exciting stuff happening here. All right. The Historian architecture. Historian has been designed for the last few years, and we're pushing on that this year to really meet you as a user where you are, right? I don't want you to have to do something special within your environment to be able to access Historian or to be able to leverage the capabilities. We want to make sure that, as you see on the corner up here, right? Dashboarding, big data analytics, digital threads, all of the key points that folks are now starting to leverage when we're looking at using AI or training AI models or being able to work off of cloud architecture. You can see AWS up here, right? If you have a data science team, we have customers today that are leveraging data science backed by Historian, which is really very exciting. But Historian is built from the ground up to work, whether that's in distributed sites or in a single site, as you see here. Whether it's on-prem software based off of Windows, we're still proud to offer a Windows-based platform, but we're doing more and more work in the cloud and with SaaS, and we'll talk about those various offerings as we go forward here today. But because we can expand the footprint of Historian, and because we're able to work in a direction where you don't necessarily have to be co-located, or you don't have to run your software on premise anymore. You can have a lot more scale, a lot bigger of a Historian, a lot faster, higher volume data collection, and leverage the hybrid architecture that we've been building for the last several years that really is coming to fruition this year in 2026. So really very exciting there. And you can see aggregation across the enterprise, right? I want you to be able to have a Historian wherever you need it, but not have to run it on-prem, or not have to have a Historian everywhere, right? You can run one in the cloud, for example, as you can see here. So you could have a single very large Historian. You could run site Historians. All of these could be powered by SaaS from Velotic software, or they could be run locally on your site. If you have special requirements, you could run a small subset of your data close by your production floor if you have regulatory needs that necessitate you to have that sort of data available, and run the bulk of it in the cloud, which you can see really enables you to leverage Parquet and the file export that we've been building. We talked about it quite a bit at our user conference, and we have customers that are testing it today and using this function to feed data up into the cloud or into other analytics, or to aggregate data together, because the Parquet format is really very efficient. So that's a new feature for 2026, is the Parquet export. So really very exciting stuff happening within the Historian realm. You can see we can meet you where you are. You can have whatever size Historian you need. This capability hasn't changed in the last few years, but I just wanted to drive home sort of why is Historian important? Why does it meet you where you are? And why should we keep considering it? Here's another piece, right? I think in all of our daily lives, we're seeing that more and more data is becoming central to our operations, to driving insights, to getting better production out of our facilities, to ramping down production cost, or minimizing downtime, or solving any of the challenges that we face in our day-to-day as manufacturers, or even as software providers to manufacturers, right? We have our own challenges inside here that data helps us solve for, whether that's in the software creation process or in your process as a user of Proficy Historian. And you can see the quote here, only 5% of the data created for further processing and analytics, right? That seems like a very, very small amount. But as we go forward and we see that AI is becoming a very, very key part of a puzzle going forward here to drive insight, to help us manage our systems, to help us work in a better architecture that makes it easier to flow, more and more data will become necessary. And with Proficy Historian, you're able to collect as much data as you can see fit across any number of common protocols, whether it's OPC or MQTT or Kafka, which came to us last year, which we've enhanced for this year, right? All of these protocols allow us to go beyond using only 5% of the data. I would love it if all of my customers had the ability to use 100% of the data that they collected to start to drive modeling and to drive analytics and to drive insights and to start to do better production activities. And at the end of the day, make their lives a lot easier because of what they're able to do, because they have the data available, and because we provide the tools and the assistance. And you'll see more about our coming AI capabilities in a future slide here. But really, as a user, I want you to be able to use all the data that you can collect to be better at the end of the day. All right, so let's dig into really what is coming new in 2026 Historian. We have a few slides here that talk about what are the things that are happening. Now, these are features for inside of the Windows Historian. Many of them apply to the cloud-based Historian as well, but we have a new feature in cloud that is also really very exciting. So you can see we're finally approaching and starting to work with Microsoft 365, right? A native add-in, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Simplified Historian and iFix integration, right? If you're using both iFix and Historian, which I know many of us are, we want that to be as easy for you to use as possible and make it so that you as a user don't have to go through all of the configuration, have a much easier time running both of those applications, and make it so that you're getting the insights that you need, whether it's alarms and events or correlation or driving data across different platforms, right? Simplified iFix integration is really cool. Collector redundancy, we've enhanced it there. Automatic failover in mirrored environments with zero data loss. This is big. No manual intervention, no data loss. This is a huge improvement for what we think of when we think of Historian. And when we think of the quote we just looked at, right? You need to have all your data available at all times to be able to understand what it's telling you, or to derive some action, or to make a corrective action, or to understand maintenance cycles or other things like that, right? Data is at the core of all the activities that we do now. And so with Historian, we're aiming to provide you all of the data with no manual intervention. Native redundancy for OPC UA, right? What you're seeing is a theme of let's make it easier to configure Historian. Let's make it easier to work with Historian. Let's make it easier to get data into Historian, which can then be used to power analytics. Real-time archive compression, reducing storage by about 50%, right? Adaptive archive compression. This is a big piece where you're able to bring in all of this data, but now you can compress it and save storage as well. We've been calling this lossless compression, which means you save disk space, you save cloud storage, you save storage on your your local machine when you have this compression enabled. Better performance in the REST APIs, right? This is a big one as well. Native C++, improved latency and scalability. Huge benefit here, right? As we're talking about bringing in more data, being able to collect more, we're giving you as a user the infrastructure to be able to bring those tools into the party and to make sure that you have the tools that you need to drive the scale that we're building for, which is really pretty cool. Tag dependency tracking, so visibility into tag references and dependencies, right? How many of us have faced a situation where maybe we don't know who created a tag and the name is kind of ambiguous and we've never decided to figure out where it goes to because it always works. It always collects the data. We know that it's there, but maybe Tim from networking is retiring and he doesn't have access to the system anymore, right? We want to be able to have all of the information available so that you can have your watchdog tags and have your dependencies mapped for all your tags across your entire system. So you know what they're telling you and when. This is really a cool enhancement. Configuration hub, the key to everything today within Historian over the last few years. Let's make it better. Millisecond trending, enhanced reporting, better UAA security integration, and improve UI performance. I think this would be really great for anyone who started to use Config Hub, or if you're a user today who maybe hasn't gotten to the point of using Configuration Hub, but has thought about it and is looking for a really streamlined web-based experience where you have centralized configuration across all your applications. And if you're using more than one Proficy product as well, it makes sense that you would want to use Configuration Hub. So making sure that the Historian portion of that is the easiest to use, gives you the best availability with millisecond trending and enhanced reporting. It's really great. Simplified installation, right? Installation is something that I've worked on over the last several years since I came on board to make sure that as a user, it's much simpler for you to work through, right? I want you to be able to upgrade Historian and not take many hours to do so. Make it a very simple process so you can always stay up to date on the most current software, right? I would love it if everyone on this call was able to update whenever we release, right? Today, that's once a year. Going forward in the future, I think you'll see multiple releases from us. So this is our 2026 release now. You'll see another release towards the end of the year with more capabilities. And we'll look to speed up the delivery of our releases going forward as well. So having simplified installation makes it much easier for you as a user to consume those from us, which is great. Enhanced Python, we're going to continue to adapt the most recent standards, upgrading to 64-bit, using the most common libraries, most up-to-date packages, right? Seamless installer setup, custom time functions, and enhanced pre-built functions UI. Really, really very cool. VBA to Python conversion tool. We know that Microsoft is walking away from VBA. We're giving you as a user, as an admin for Historian, a way to leverage those capabilities and to not have to worry that we're using unsupported software or unsupported language versions, right? A tool to make it so that you can have the guidance to convert VBA into Python with Configuration Hub support. So make it really easy for folks that are using this today and have used Historian for quite some time to have tools available to make their experience better and to have the tools they need to move forward into the most modern standards. And obviously, everything is orange now. We are now Velotic. It's really important that we have the branding available to be able to show folks that we are now Velotic and we're happy and proud to be the company that we've become. All right. So a few views of what do we have going on, right? What does it look like? You might be excited and say, finally, Office 365 integration. My company moved there years ago. Finally, we can have a web-based interface, right? Very similar to what you would see in any other interface, but queries are much better in 365. The ribbon is much easier to use. On top of that, you're not tied to a machine. Because it's web-based, you can access it wherever you are, whether you're walking the factory floor on a tablet or you're on a machine that's not your normal machine or you're working from a different location, you can access it wherever you are. And that's the cool part about cloud-based platforms in general. You can see the Excel add-in. It operates just like it always did, but the UI has been updated. There's some capabilities that have been added to this tool because we know that we need to support the most modern of standards. And if we're supporting the most modern way to utilize Excel for Historian, we want it to be the best that it can be. Raw data querying. This should look very familiar to folks. We can see input all of your query data into the right-hand panel here. It pulls the data out of Historian. Very similar to what it does today, but with a more modern look and feel and a bit more flexibility and extensibility, and just a much better web-based experience. The Python collector. Here you can see that new branding, right? Looks really good with the black on orange, but changes to the Python collector, right? We've upgraded from 32 to 64-bit. We're using the most common Python package, seamless collector setup, custom time functions, and then a better UI to use pre-built functions. This is really cool, especially as you look at sort of more modern language support, being able to write your queries in a language that's much easier to use and that more and more folks are coming to the job and to the workplace utilizing. I think this is really exciting. All right, we'll dig into some other key features now. Delivery methods, hyperscale, which I'm sure folks have heard a bit about, other pieces of the puzzle. It's really very exciting. The hyperscale version of Historian for cloud. This is the newest, latest, greatest, biggest Historian. This is really a capability that you're only going to get from Proficy Historian. Others on the marketplace don't offer anything with this type of scale. They certainly don't offer it as a SaaS platform, so you as a user won't have to have any of the setup or configuration or specking of resources type nightmare that you may have had in the past with Historian. Like, hyperscale is the way to go forward. And you can see built on AWS, a single access endpoint, so you're able to go in. The cool part about AWS really follows what we were just talking about with Office 365, where you can access from anywhere. As long as you have an internet connection, you have access to your Historian. Parallel processing, millions of data samples per second, the end result being 1 billion samples per minute ingestion rate. That's a ton. I have a slide coming up where I show the sort of the scale of that. Everything about this version of Historian and hyperscale is designed for throughput, for ease of use, for being able to bring in data from the different sources where you have it and never have a bottleneck, right? Security is in there. We make sure that all the data streams are individualized so that we're bringing them in parallel, so you never have a bottleneck. Everything is managed inside of the application itself, so you as a user never have to work through, oh, how much data is coming off of collector A or collector B or collector C, but we know it's there. The client manager, making sure that you can manage thousands of client requests and handle all the configuration. Highly efficient cache, right? We've designed this from the ground up to be performant. Every microservice is scalable based on demand, from 0 to maximum capacity. So you're only ever using as much Historian on the hardware as you need to and on the infrastructure. So we could scale from very, very small to huge, depending on your need as a user, right? There are use cases for this across different industries, whether it's electrification or very high-speed data collection off of certain manufacturing processes or using weld robots. Any application that's bringing in a really, really high volume of data, this is a great application to start to use. And it's in use with several customers today, right? Ultra low latency and great user experience. This is the option to take for Historian if you're really looking to never have to think about headroom or increasing disk space or running out of room on your servers. We handle it all for you, especially as a SaaS platform. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of customers, and I'd love to have conversations with folks as we go forward. So you might say, Brian, that's really, that sounds very impressive, but what are we actually talking about in terms of throughput? And so I did a little calculation. If we converted the data samples and each one we considered it 1 second, the current Historian can do quite a few more than 1 million samples per second. But 1 million seconds is 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds is 31.7 years. The difference in data throughput from the million, which we can do today with Historian, multiple millions, to the billion samples per minute with hyperscale is unheard of. And really, you can see the difference from days to years and decades even. Really, really quite impressive. Now think about that in terms of You'll see this slide a bit later as well. Driving analytics, right? Lossless compression. Bring all the data in, compress it as much as you need, save space, but have all of the data available that you could ever want to start to power a model, to drive analytics, to query against, to be able to aggregate with other sources of data using a UNS or other sort of data fabric applications. We have our own. But think of the use cases or the throughput that you could get or the insights that are waiting in this type of data when you've trained an AI model against it and are able to start to look for correlations or for patterns that maybe we haven't seen or that are happening so quickly that it's hard for us as people to identify, but a properly trained AI model could pick those out in seconds and say, hey, we potentially have a problem here. You may want to act about it. And then going forward from there, you have enough data to start to enable closed loop processes if you so desire, right? You can leverage an agent to start to run certain parts of your process for you. If you have a night shift in your facility and you don't want to staff it fully with people, you could run an agent as part of that process, which is trained off of all of this data and all of the models and making sure that you can make the proper decisions. I think that's really very cool. And there's no one else on the market that offers this capability currently. So happy to have it within Proficy. All right. How do we deliver it, right? New ways to deliver, new capabilities, new really, really exciting capabilities, and new ways to deliver those capabilities as well, right? If you as a user are looking for, what do we see here? Cost efficiency, scalability, accessibility, zero downtime upgrades. How many of us have gone through a Historian upgrade that took longer than we thought it should? Well, we can now do it with zero downtime. Integration, security, flexibility, right? All of these things are in high demand in modern business, right? Cost efficiency. I think many of us see that costs and OpEx and spend are going to be increasingly under a microscope. How do we leverage new and different solutions to get better scale at a better cost? SaaS is one of those ways for Historian. Scalability, like we just talked about, data volume or compute on demand. Running hyperscale version of Historian on SaaS gives you all of the benefit with none of the downside, right? We handle all the configuration. We handle all of the resourcing. We build out the tenants for you. You get to log in and get the benefit of your data and the analytics that you can leverage, whether it's on our own tools like Operations Hub or other tools out there like Tableau or Seek or Power BI or any of the tools that are out there that are now being built by Microsoft. You want to feed it into Copilot or you want to feed it into Claude. We're using Claude internally on a lot of processes and the outcomes have been really, really fantastic. But you can now leverage that with all your data. Accessibility from anywhere you are, access your Historian. Check that it's running correctly. You don't have to be in the office. You could be on a business trip. You could be halfway around the world from where you normally work and still access all of your systems, be able to drive analytics, be able to get warnings about things that are happening or going correctly or could be going wrong. It's all here for you when you think about SaaS. So it really is the ultimate value solution when you're looking for a time to value that's really competitive or scalability or integration, right? Because we're able to leverage it for you and do all the setup. You as a user don't really lose anything, which is pretty cool. All right. So now we're going to talk about sort of one of the bigger pieces of our puzzle that we've been developing and have been working on for quite some time. And you'll see us continue to develop as Velotic now that there's really a focus on starting to deliver these type of capabilities. What can we give you, right? I think this is really a self-actualized photo of where can we go in the future, right? How do we virtualize all of the activity that we've been doing so that it shows up on a clear panel that's projected into the space, into sort of clear space, right? That's a someday vision, but we can get you charts and graphs today, powered by AI, built off of SQL or not SQL or properly trained agents. You can see here, one of the cool things that we're doing is enabling non-SQL users to drive insights with natural language and voice commands. So I don't think it should be the case anymore where a user of Historian should have to become a data analysis expert, right? If you have a question, if you are an executive in a plant or you're a production manager, or you're just somebody who generally has a question based off of plant data, or not necessarily maybe even plant floor. Maybe you are an executive and you have a question about production or throughput or efficiency site by site, or a comparison of global footprint, right? Maybe you're looking at Europe versus United States or North America. How do you get there, right? Previously, you would have to go and ask a data analyst to write the query, or go to your data science team and derive an algorithm and start to build it out and train and work it through and make sure that the results you're getting are there. But we've taken all of that work on your behalf as a customer to start to deliver that sort of insight using natural language processing, which is really an easy way to say, ask and you shall receive, right? If you have a question of the historian, ask it and we'll be able to build a chart for you, or a graph or a metric that you can then utilize either for an executive dashboard or an executive briefing or otherwise. If you are a plant floor operator and you just have a question about throughput and you want to see, I don't know, instead of what it shows you for 1 week, maybe you want to see 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month of data in a picture that gives you an easy to understand way to do that. We can do that with natural language processing, and you won't have to become an expert in using any of that data or manipulating the data or sanitizing all the data, right? I think a lot of us have probably heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. Well, we've taken care of all of that. So as a user, you just have to ask and you get the answers that you're looking for, which is really very cool. There are other pieces that we're building for our AI puzzle that are around administration tasks, or things where we've done a lot of research with our users and we've understood that there are pain points that we need to solve, whether it's data collection issues, network challenges, anomaly detection in a process, right? Can we leverage Historian in combination with tools like cSense or otherwise, or just the agent inside of Historian to give you as a user insights that you need, right? Server unresponsiveness, data forecasting, disk space issues. A lot of these things, we should be able to alert you as a user and make you more proactive in the process instead of reactive. Always saying, hey, your disk is full, do something about it now. Well, we should be able to tell you, which we will be able to using our AI solutions. Hey, your disk is filling up. Perhaps you'd like to make a decision, get a, change to a larger disk size, compress some of the data, offload some of the data to another source, like give you options of where you can go, and make sure that as a user, you're starting to be ahead of the process in operating Historian, working with Historian, and not reactive, right? We want the situation of a weekend, middle of the night phone call about a system issue to go away entirely, never happen again, which I think is really very cool. And we're well on the way to doing that with the AI solutions that we've prepared with Historian. So I think it's really pretty neat. And then utilizing AI capabilities to minimize downtime. So downtime is one of the major contributors to losses in the factory space. So we've measured making sure that you as a user minimize your downtime, whether that's like we talked about before with easy installation, better tools to use, leveraging these type of options where we're putting you ahead of the process as a user. So you'll see the downtime coming, whether it's through being alerted by an agent saying, hey, we've noticed in this pattern, cavitation on this impeller or cavitation on this pump, or pressure on a line is increasing, right? This equipment might go down in 24, 36, 48 hours because of what we've done pattern matching. We understand. So we can start to alert you as a user to those type of things so that you're always ahead of the process and can either go through preventative maintenance. And there's a lot of tools like next gen SCADA and things that we're building that will make it happen for you as a user. So Historian as the backbone of these processes will be able to have all the data that's there to be able to drive new and different insights that as a user take you out of a lot of the difficulty we may have seen in the past when using Historian. So you can start to leverage new and different capabilities and start to be ahead of a process and have a chart like you see here that gives you the information that you need when you need it or before you need it. So you can start to make decisions and get ahead of processes and save a lot of time, which I think is pretty cool. More examples of where we're going. Right now, we're calling it auto intelligence. And these features will be available in Historian towards the end of the year. So we have a lot of effort going into another release close to the December timeframe. So you'll see betas coming out in Q3 of this type of stuff with new and different Historian options for AI. There is an overall Velotic push for a unified AI portfolio from every product, whether it's ThingWorx or Kepware or the SCADAs or MES or Historian, making sure that we have sort of a unified front there and what capabilities are we delivering. But with Historian, you'll see a beta come out towards the end of the fall, and then a new release coming towards the end of the year, which is pretty cool. But things like optimizing server performance, that's really cool. If you don't have to do any tuning on your own as an admin, think of all the other things you could be spending your time on, or other places or where you can put IT resources, because they don't have to work on Historian and work on collector performance to make sure you're getting the best out of it. Leveraging then Hyperscale and SaaS, you don't have to do this at all, but we're building parts of the portfolio or parts of the product to be able to give you these alerts and enable you in such ways that you've never seen before to be able to work forward instead of backwards. Historian data by Kafka or MQTT, guided by a base configuration. Should you as a user have to configure all of your collectors? No, we've built the product. We understand what optimal configuration looks like based on different factors, different inputs. We can do that for you. Automatically creating new resources, right? Scalability. If you start to run short on a certain thing, new collector potentially, right? We see that a collector is pulling in a lot of bandwidth, slowing down because it's overloaded. We can do that. New threads for data collection, new archives based on configuration. So we can start to change the way your Historian operates and move you so that you never have a problem where maybe you drop data because you don't have the proper configuration, or an archive gets full and a new one wasn't created. We can do all that for you now using AI. Automatically restarting services. Yeah, absolutely. Right. We've had the collector manager for quite some time, the remote collector manager, but we can start to do that within Historian now with services and other pieces of the Historian application where an admin may have to get involved in the past. But we can start to deliver those for you and make sure that as a user, we're alerting you that there maybe was a problem, but we fixed it. You can rest assured, no, Historian has it under control. We're now moving in a direction where you'll never see a stoppage because we'll detect it and we'll fix it before it even becomes an issue. I think that's really, really cool and really impactful for many, many organizations and folks that are using Historian today. Insights when collectors fail, right? There was a problem. Here's what we did about it. Here's how you don't find yourself there again. That's really very cool. Encryption issues, right? The more complex the technology becomes, the easier we need to make it as a software developer for our users to use that very complicated application. And we're doing that with Historian utilizing AI and the auto intelligence feature that we're talking about here. And then things like archive corruption, right? We hear about this on a pretty frequent basis, but it shouldn't happen. And we're developing tools to make it go away, to make it a thing of the past, right? So overall, when you think about what Historian is doing with AI, it's to enhance the user experience, whether you're an admin or a Historian user, or you are the consumer of the data coming out of Historian. We want you to have the best configuration experience, the easiest configuration experience, the most proactive conversation with your application because of natural language processing and the agentic process that we're building in. But we want you to also be able to deliver insights that you've never even thought of before because the tool itself can help you, right? We know that folks will have questions or have requests for data or have needs that they're looking to satisfy using Historian data. Well, we can provide that for you and make sure that you are, as a user, getting all the insights that you need, and potentially some that maybe you've never considered if there's a correlation across different product lines or something that we can come up with because the agent starts to identify patterns and does matching. And because of the way it's trained, it can start to do those things, which I think is really pretty cool. But you might be saying, what does all that look like? Well, I can show you. Here are some examples of the screens, the UIs we have in testing, leveraging different AI agents and different processes, right? Here's one. You can see the backbone of it all is Configuration Hub. If you're using Configuration Hub today, right? Kafka Connect is there. So you've got your Kafka stuff, you've got your data stores, your Historian archives, all your data. But there's a new button, the intelligence button. So just like we've talked about now, we sort of talked through what it does. Here's what it looks like. And here's the UI that you'll be presented with to try to make it as easy as possible for you as a Historian admin or Historian user to understand what's there. So you'll have the tab interface that you have today where they grow across the screen at the top. And then just examples, right? You've got 3 of 5 collectors active in your system. Is that good? Maybe. Maybe that's exactly what you need, but maybe not as well. Maybe you would like to troubleshoot those other 2. The system can help you with that. Your data ingestion, maybe that's good, maybe it's not. But we make it very easy for you to understand, okay, here's what's happening across your historian system. And for some of us, it's a single historian, right? But we want to know that it's running correctly. And for others of us, it's 100 historians distributed globally that are running through a single admin in the upper Midwest, so that a screen like this would make their life a whole lot easier because they could see all their systems aggregated, or they could look at individual historian systems. But it's all backed by the AI agents and making sure that everything is there. So active alerts, take action. System health, an easy way to understand. How are you operating? How is historian doing? Maybe 94% is great for some of us, but for others of us, that won't be good at all. We can dig in and understand what is the process that we need to fix, or what is the problem that we're trying to solve for. Okay, well, easily collector control, right? We can see, okay, so of our 3 of the 5 that are running, here they are, running here in an easy to understand way in the center of the screen. This one is stopped. Should it be? Okay, maybe not. We can restart it. You never have to go to the collector, go to the machine, restart it. You can use remote collector manager as part of this process to make that happen. And then there's one in error state. Well, maybe this is our most pressing issue that we need to solve for, and maybe we need to figure out why. But we can see, oh, predictive intelligence. Here's what we think is the problem. We have a vibration sensor failure. So here's our vibration analyzer. It's failed. We think the problem is, and you can see it's collector 004, collector 004, increasing error rates and packet loss patterns. Here's the problem. How do we fix it? So you as a user, as an admin, are immediately directed to fix the reds, maybe monitor the oranges, and green is good to go. You don't have to worry about that. So starting to leverage the tools we're building to make your use of historian very much easy and very fast and very efficient. So you only focus where you need to, and you don't have to run queries every Monday morning to see what collectors are doing. Like, we're going to tell you that and make sure that you as a user can understand what's there. So hopefully these are really impactful changes, and I would love to have conversation with folks that are thinking about this in a certain direction. I have already with certain major power users of historian and customers that are really using a lot of the tools within the product, but I would open any conversation, just irrespective of your industry. Like, if this resonates with you, please let me know. You can reach out to me after the webinar, and I'd love to have a conversation. Natural language processing. This is the same, another screen within intelligence, but you can see what can the agent help with. Performance analysis, error diagnosis, predictive insights, optimization, and operations support, different categories. We have some tips, like what can you do? So here are the capabilities, but how do you leverage them? We have some pre-canned questions or language that we can put into the agent, like show me a collector performance summary, or optimize a data collection schedule, or things like that it can go off and do on its own. We've selected here, show me the collector performance summary. Okay, well, it breaks it down now. So in the other screen, we saw a sort of proactive approach. In this screen, we see a user is approaching the agent, asking the question, being able to type it in, show me the collector performance summary, and the agent goes out and says, okay, well, here's the status of your system. 3 of 5 collectors are running. Here's your total throughput. Your CPU usage is such and such, 42% here. And then how much of your storage have you used, as an example. So we can give you the breakdown in a 4-word request of what exactly is going on with your system. Is everything okay, or is it not? What can we do about it? So really making it so that as a user, you can interact with the system in such a way that it's easy, it's clean, it's effective. You don't have to spend your entire day trying to troubleshoot things. We can take that over for you, and we can put you in a direction where you're able to work on other things in your area instead of having to always work on historian. All right. You can also ask it to generate a time series chart for timestamp and value, and it will go ahead and it will create the request based on what you've asked it to do. It will pull the tabular data, and it will give you a metric that shows you, in this case, the line chart, but bar and pie are also options in this specific scenario. So you can start to see in a very quick and easy way, like, hey, here's a chart that we can then build or bring to Operations Hub or other places where it's something that we might want to monitor all the time. But no longer do we have to build the SQL query or the query ourselves as a user. We ask a question of the application. It knows how to do all these things. It builds the query in the background. It knows where all the tags are located because of the intelligence inbuilt to the system. And it gives you a result, which I think is really very cool. Just another way to look at the same data, right? For For different folks, there will be different ways or different best practices when it comes to what data to display. So maybe instead of a line chart, you want a bar chart. Okay, well, we can change that. We can make it suit whoever is asking the question to get the information and the display that works for them the best, so that you're always understanding what the system is telling you or what's going on. So a lot of flexibility. I think that's one of the key points of Proficy Historian over time is it's very flexible, and there are a lot of ways to achieve different ends. This particular development, I think, being the easiest, because you just have to be able to speak your request and you're able to get the data back and be able to utilize it in ways that make sense for you as a user.